Sorry, I just wanted to take a little bit of a poll for folks, just kind of what your role is in the PTA and what is your experience level in PTA finances. So I'm going to launch that poll if you all just wouldn't mind kind of giving some responses, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, great. All right, so I'm going to end the polling and then I'm going to share the results. So it looks like we have mostly treasurers and quite a few new folks. So we will go ahead and cover as much as we can. I've also listed some resources, and as soon as I stop sharing, I'll put those in the chat as well. So tonight, we just really want to talk a little bit about financial reviews and money matters. And this is more of an open forum for you guys to ask questions, have discussion. And so it will be less presentation and more discussion. But I just wanted to go through what the summer looks like for finances and treasurers. So in June, which is now over, all treasurers should be preparing their financials for the review, and then give those files to the committee, whoever that is going to be. And then obviously, if you are transitioning out or transitioning in, you're going to want to go ahead and schedule those meetings to get things from the current treasurer or to give things to the new treasurer. And then we're going to want to ensure that all final dues were collected for the year and have been paid prior to June 30. For Fairfax County Council, if you have not paid your dues yet, we are happy to take them. They just will not be cashed until after our own financial review is over. Then in June and July, where we are now, the new treasurer will take over the records. We'll make sure that there's a financial review completed, make sure any necessary changes in the banking are completed, go over the books, make sure that you're setting up your files, establish the procedures for reimbursements, how you're going to pay bills, how you're going to want to do things on your end. Make sure that you are talking to your counterparts on the board to see what kind of projects and programs are going to need funding so that you begin to set up your budget. Once you kind of talk through and set up your budget, you present your budget proposal to the board for approval. The budget is generally an iterative process for folks. So everybody kind of says, hey, I'm going to need this, that, or the other for, whatever it is that they're doing, and you kind of craft based on that. You may have some at beginning of year expenses, such as, a lot of the elementary school they do like ice cream social to open the year, or a teacher breakfast, things like that. The other important thing to do over the summer is to make sure that your insurance premiums are paid. You do not want to start your year without insurance. Attend any trainings. The Virginia PTA is doing an amazing set of online training. I have some links here for you to those. If you missed any that were, Anne Marie is the treasurer for the Virginia PTA. She has done some amazing sessions. I have the links to the YouTube videos. You can go back and watch them. And then obviously, not a must for the July-August timeframe, but definitely start thinking about filing your taxes. Your 990s, if your year ended on June 30th, your 990s are due in November. So if you're doing the financial review, now might be a good time to take care of that. The earlier you process your 990s, the earlier it's accepted. So those are kind of the things that treasurers have to do over the summer. I wanted to let everybody know that the FCCPTA is hosting a financial review swap. We've heard from some that it's getting really difficult to get volunteers to do that. And so doing an audit swap is one way that we may be able to help get volunteers, because you need a committee of 3. And so I sent an email to all of the treasurers and presidents recently talking about this. If you did not get it, I'm happy to put a link to the Google Doc in. All you have to do is say, yes, I'd like to be part of the swap, and we'll handle it from there and give you more information. And then finally, here are some of the resources that I told you about. There is a whole page on Virginia PTA about treasurer tools. That will tell you what goes in your treasurer binder. That will tell you what you should be doing each month, the types of documents that you should be housing in your treasurer's binder. There is Treasurer Essentials and Financial Reviews were two specific trainings that got completed already. And I put the links in here for you guys so that you can see those. And then on July 21st, Anne-Marie will be hosting a session on what PTA should be funding, which is really about budgeting. And you can still register. There's still time to register for that. So with that said, I'm going to stop my share and I'm going to just kind of open the floor because we want these sessions to be really conversational, you know, and a lot of Q&A back and forth. So with that, I will open the floor to any questions. I see that there is one in the chat about good information on wrapping up the books for the year. So if you are an incoming treasurer, the best thing that you can do is the outgoing treasurer will close the books. They will turn them over. And then the best thing that you can do to really get your sea legs under you, and something that I did that was super helpful, was participate in the financial review committee. And that should be a really good way to do that. If you are the outgoing treasurer and you are trying to kind of get it all together for whoever is coming in, making sure that all of your items are in your treasurer's notebook and that your accounts can be reconciled is a good place to start. But go ahead, I'm going to open up the floor.
Sure. Hi, my name is George. That was my comment there. This past year is my first year as being on the PTA board, and it really wasn't a good handoff last year. It was just sort of a, here's the checkbook, good luck. I just want, I'm going to stick on for the next year, so I'm not too concerned about the transition. I just want to make sure that we, get everything in place well now, so when I do transition, so I understand the process. So that when it is time to hand it over, I can just say, here's a nice, like a nice binder. Here's all the information. And so I figure this year, I'm going to figure it out as I go, but hopefully I figure it out well enough so that next year, 2 years down the road, when I have to actually hand it over, it's clean.
Yeah. So, I have to say for my FCCPTA, I got a great handoff. Everything was on a zip drive. I had everything electronically. I had a hard copy binder. I mean, it was amazing. At my local PTA, I actually stepped into the president's role and we had a new treasurer, and that was a hot mess. And so kind of figuring out what we were supposed to have, when it was due, where it was supposed to go. The thing that I would recommend is watching that Treasurer's Essential video, because that will really walk you through everything that should be in that notebook this way. If you're handing it off, or I always say, like if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, can you pick up my something and be able to go with it and take it forward? It will go over everything that you need. And I just, I finished mine. It's about 3 inches big, and, it's got everything in it that you would need. So, and then the VA PTA under the treasurer tools, it has an actual list of the contents of your binder, just in case that's helpful. And I will cut and paste those links into the chat right now. So hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Thank you.
For sure. Any other questions, thoughts, comments, or concerns?
Hi, Jamie. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Hi, Kathy.
Hi. I don't know if this is the right question for this group, but one of the reasons I joined this session was because I wanted to see if this was okay. One of the things we do at our PTA in the beginning of the year is give every teacher a certain amount of money to reimburse them for classroom supplies. And in past years, it's a huge task because every teacher has to submit disbursement form and receipts, and we process those as the treasurer. But I heard from other parents that I guess things are done a little bit differently at other schools, where it seems like the PTA just hands the teachers a certain sum of money for these classroom supplies and don't request receipts and disbursements. To me, and I guess there's a push from parents to try to get us to do that at my school. It just doesn't seem kosher with the rules, I guess, in my mind. But then I was thinking a workaround might be if we gave the school a grant that would cover every teacher that requires these classroom supplies, and then it wouldn't, I guess it wouldn't be up to the PTA then to process the disbursements and make sure there's receipts, and it would be for the school to hand them out to the teachers. Is that, or what are your thoughts, I guess, on both approaches? Are schools doing that? Have you heard that? And, you know,
So I will tell you that just handing over cash, I mean, any school that's doing that is probably not in the best position. Because at the end of this school year, you kind of have to reconcile, well, I wrote this check for this amount and here's the receipt that matches that.
right.
You know, that's part of the financial review. And so absent that, I don't know how you would just write out, you know, kind of checks to, you know, each teacher getting $25 or, you know, however it's done.
Right.
I can say that there have been some PTAs that do teacher request forms, and then the PTA does go out and buy those things for the teacher. So, you know, if the teacher in third grade needs, I don't know, crayons, or whatever, right? The PTA can purchase those. I have heard of schools doing teacher wish lists for Amazon and parents making donations. I don't necessarily know about a grant back to the school. I don't know if Anne-Marie is here, but if she is and listening, I
I
would
am.
take on that.
Yeah, so you don't want to give money to the school without some kind of receipt or invoice, just like you don't want to give money to a teacher without a receipt or an invoice, because you need to be able to prove that your funds were spent on what you said they were. And so any school that is giving cash out, that they should not be doing that. So you have the right instincts.
Okay. I
you
mean,
know,
it certainly makes my life easier, but I'm
Of
like, I think
course.
there's a reason for why we require
Right.
receipts.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, you know, a lot of schools, they might just be giving like, I don't know, $20 or $25, but the IRS considers any kind of cash payment income. And so, you know, you put yourself in a very precarious position in which you're not reimbursing, you're paying. And you know, that there's a lot of things about it that are not good practice. But as far as the school, if you have a school business, you know, like, you know, the administrative secretary who works for the principal, who handles all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If they are purchasing things for the teachers with the school funds, and you have an agreement to reimburse them, that's one thing. But if you just say, hey, you know, administration, here's $500, you do not guarantee, if you write a check to the school, they have no obligation, unless you have a written contract or something, to use it for what you said you wanted them to use it for. Like the principal could take that money and use it for something else. And I mean, it's just not a good idea to give somebody a sum of money without, you know, having an invoice or a receipt for what it is. And, you know, that's just for transparency for your membership, that the funds are being spent the way that you budgeted them for. I know it's a huge hassle. I was an elementary PTA treasurer a long time ago. And, you know, we did a similar thing where for a while we did, you know, any teacher who turned in reimbursement receipts, we would write them a reimbursement check, and it was a real pain. We actually switched to, instead of doing that, we switched to teacher grants, like Jamie was kind of mentioning, where you have an application process where they tell you what the money is going to be used for, and then they can either buy it themselves or you can buy it for them. It takes a step. And then you can say, you know, to apply for teacher grant, you have to be part of the PTA. You have to be a member, instead of just, you know, giving money to every teacher, whether they are participants in your association or not. I mean, that, you know, that's something you guys can discuss
Yeah, we do have that too. We call it our teacher mini grants, and they're done twice a year. And we have different factors that we, try to evaluate in a committee that goes through these requests and try to identify the ones that, would affect the biggest student population. And those are the ones we usually grant. But this one is more of like right when school starts.
Right.
We give a small sum of money to the teachers. What has been happening is that, I've only been treasurer this past year, but I've been told that only about half of the teachers take advantage of it because of this process of,
Right.
keeping their receipts and submitting it for reimbursement. But everyone tells me that, all the teachers spend their money and some of them don't go through this process. So I guess I'm feeling pressure to make it easier for them. I just don't see how I can get away from requiring the receipts and going through the traditional process that's been, we've had. And then, some parents have told me, well, this X elementary school is just kind of giving out gift cards or something like that. And then, every teacher gets that benefit. And I'm like, oh, really? Okay. But yeah. All right. So at least by asking this question, I can go back and say, well, I've asked it and it's not kosher. So we'll keep doing whatever we've been doing.
And I can say, that's part of our kind of role here for you all, is to be able to say, hey, we got this question. It doesn't seem right to me. What do you guys think? And then, at the county level, and then if we have to raise it up district or Virginia level, we can get you the information that you need to make the best decisions that you can. And so, while we're sitting here tonight, happy to answer any questions, but this isn't the only opportunity you guys have. You should always feel free to email any of our officers, and if we don't have answers, we'll get them. And then this way you have the support when you bring it back to your board to be able to say, even though other schools are doing it, this isn't really the way that we should be doing it or thinking about it. Or, hey, yeah, we're good to go here. So we can always provide that. What else? What other things are you guys facing, either as new treasurers or old treasurers, just wrapping things up?
I'll chime in. I've got a couple of questions. Hi, everybody. My name is Anna, and I am an incoming first-time treasurer. So about to be part of our financial review committee and then taking over from there. So two somewhat different questions, more just out of my own curiosity. One kind of on a practical level, a question that had come up. So, understanding the mission of the PTA is to serve the school, the kids, the teachers equally, right? Our elementary school typically buys like popsicles or something for a kindergarten play date, which is a kind of an event that happens every year for incoming kindergartners. They meet their teachers, they meet the principal. And a question came up last year because we got a request from a 6th grade parent. Our school goes up to 6th, asking for like a couple $100 for something that they were doing for the graduating kids. And we had denied the request, which ended up being fine. But the parent brought up a point, and the request was denied on account of we don't fund things that are specific to grades. It has to be fairly equal across the board. And the parent brought up, well, what about the kindergarten play day? That only serves kindergartners. So we were tussling with this yesterday. We had our first incoming board meeting. So our president and vice president are coming in from last year, and our secretary and treasurer are new. So wanted to just get your perspective on that. We kind of had an idea of how we might approach it from kind of a symbolic perspective, but curious about your perspective on that. And then kind of a big picture question, more just from my own knowledge. I'm wondering, obviously we have our budget and we build it kind of on what we expect to get from membership dues. Do we have a responsibility to spend down a certain amount of our budget? Or is it in our discretion to carry over, if we wanted to, for example, like 90%? I mean, I don't see why we would do that, but I'm just more curious, like, is there a regulation, a rule, or something that we have to follow that says you have to spend down X amount? Or carry over X amount. My career is in nonprofits, so nonprofits have very strict rules about this. So I'm curious if that applies to PTAs in any way. Thank you.
I'm actually gonna answer your second question first, because it's a little easier, I think. So there is no tried and true, like X percentage can carry over and nothing more. You always want to carry over just a bit to take care of some of those beginning of school stuff, things that you may have, or like summer items that may be like, hey, we've got to pay insurance, or we've got to pay our Zoom fee, or whatever. So saying that there is no, like, 90% has to be spent, 10%, whatever it is, the notion of collecting money and fundraising is that you spend it on the kids who are at the school in the year that you are collecting. And so, a lot of schools went through this when COVID hit, because they had all these amazing events planned and then they couldn't do anything. And so they had all this money left over at the end of the year. So obviously there are going to be situations like that where that happens. And it is what it is. So no rule about it, but the thought behind fundraising for PTA is to spend it on the kids teachers, families that are in your school in that given year. So carrying over something like 90%, unless there's a pandemic or something like that, is not really within the kind of thought process that follows spending on those kids. Now, so for the ice pops versus the sixth graders, there is really an argument to be made there, right? So we do something for the kindergartners. Why can't we do it for the sixth graders? I know what a lot of folks do is for anything. I know we do it at our elementary school. So we say, okay, sixth graders, we're going to spend X amount of money on you, but you've got to be able to match that. And things like that. So as long as it's in your budget to do, there's nothing wrong with you doing it. Kindergartners and sixth graders are two groups of kids who are kind of uniquely situated within an elementary school. One is incoming, so we want to give them all the feels. We want them to join the PTA. We want them to feel like they belong to us and they're part of our school's family, right? And then with the sixth graders, we want to send them off and make sure that they remember their time at our school and enjoy it and love it and appreciate it and want to come back and visit. And so all of that said, I think that there is absolutely an argument on serving those two groups, separate and apart from making sure that there's something for the entire school. And as long as, it's in your budget that, hey, this is what we plan to do, and the general membership votes on that, then you're golden. If your general membership pushes back on either of those and says, we don't want to do those, then they can't go in the budget and then you can't do it. So I hope that helps.
Thank you. Yeah, that's actually exactly where we landed with the kindergartners and sixth graders, adding the sixth graders to the budget. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
We faced that situation where we had way too much money left over from previous year. And so we got spent down, or it'll be spent down buying a sign for the school. But, and then we're trying to just pick a number like 9-10 grand to have like as the rolling amount to carry over each year. That way, because that's going to see, that's going to be all your startup funds, like say the administrative stuff, and help you weather any years when you don't have, a lot of funding. And then the other thing on like the sixth grade kindergarten, we faced that too. And we had a problem. It seemed like teachers didn't want to sign up to spend for money to do stuff. We were like pulling teeth just to get people to try to, volunteer their time to get money out of us. But so if there's money in your budget for the sixth graders, I say spend it. And if there isn't, then the people that want money for the sixth graders can volunteer to organize activities to raise money for it. So, my 2 cents.
Yeah. No, good thoughts, good interventions. Anybody else have anything that they have questions about, thoughts on things that we've already talked through, things that you guys do at your school? Is everybody elementary level? Do we have any middle or high school treasurers?
I'm an incoming high school treasurer.
Okay, got it. Okay.
I'm elementary. I did have one question on, like we got a check on June, it was for a fundraiser early in June, but the check didn't come in until June 30th. And then I didn't get to deposit until July 2nd. Should that be on last year's books or this year's books?
So you'll see that there is a place in the financial review to reflect any non-made deposits. So you would reflect it there, but it would reflect as income for your next fiscal year if it was deposited after June 30.
Okay.
Yeah. Anybody else? Thoughts, questions, concerns about going into the next year? I know that, you know, things were normal and then we hit COVID and we said, oh, everything's kind of turned upside down. And it was a brand new world. And now I feel like going back to school and back to kind of the regular way of doing business, maybe throwing folks for a loop as well. So any concerns about kind of operationalizing, you know, post-COVID things for your PTA and the financial pieces?
Well, I think the tricky thing that we're trying to navigate is we don't know what we're going to be able to do. Like there's some inkling that we will be allowed to do things at the school. Like we met, like I said, we met for our first like new board meeting, executive board yesterday. And like, we have a list of probably 20 questions that we came out with for our principal, because we just don't know what we're going to be able to do. So budgeting accordingly is a little tricky because, you know, do we buy gear, spiritware, for example? Do we move all of our payments strictly to online and stay with that option? Or might we be able to also target folks in actual in-person events where we might get more traction? So I think that's the kind of complicated part, because like we started talking about, we typically do like a winter fair. It's incredibly crowded and everybody was like, oh God, like the thought of that many people in one place, even if we're allowed, just seemed like a lot. So like, okay, maybe if we're allowed at least to be on school grounds, maybe we can try like for a fall festival and then people can go inside and we can tie the book fair. So we're trying to be creative about events and engaging the community, working without really any parameters for what we're going to be able to do. So it's a little tricky. So we kind of are just thinking about staying with a similar budget that we have and kind of be what we kind of are calling an additive year. So budgeting more conservatively, and then if we have the ability to raise more, we can add on more as we go. So that's kind of our approach, but we're all kind of trying to figure it out.
Sure. No, that's great. And don't forget, like, you know, depending on where you are and what you want to do and have to do, you can always go back to your membership and say, look, we're able to do more stuff. So we want to do more fundraising. So, you know, here's a revised budget. And so, you know, I think that PTA is nice in that, you know, you have that oversight of your general membership voting on your budget, but you've got that flexibility that you can say, hey, we decided we could do more. And so this is the new revision. And would you vote on this? And so that flexibility provides you kind of a way to, you know, kind of tread lightly in the beginning until you see what's what. And I also think that over the past year, we've seen a lot of reinvention of PTA. And I think that you know, folks who, you know, push to stay connected with their communities, right? Kind of reimagine like, well, we did this, but how might we do it in this new environment? And I think that kind of shifted how people thought about and budgeted for their year. You know, being able to offer things in different ways. So I think that's really great. I know we've got a couple of new folks here. I think I saw earlier in the chat. Are there any questions? I know that Nancy said, you know, just cover some of the basics. I think that, you know, you can't enter if you enter this with good intentions, there's nothing you can't accomplish. And so I wouldn't worry about, you know, the fact that you feel like you don't know what you're doing, because I am sure that is not the case. I am sure that there's a lot of this that's, you know, probably feeling pretty normal.
Hey, Jamie.
Hey.
I wouldn't be so sure.
We have faith in you. You can do it.
I am Nancy Hansen. I'm joined by my colleague here at the table, but I have a funny background so you can't see it. We are a very small, under-resourced school. When George said $9,000 to $10,000 that he carries over, we both spit out our water because we've never had a year like that. So I have a really basic question. You had mentioned you definitely don't want to get caught without insurance. And for example, that our bylaws say nothing about insurance. We know nothing about insurance. Like, how do we even get that basic information about what do we need and how do we get it into our bylaws?
Sure. So insurance is required by Virginia PTA. And if are you guys just starting or you're just taking over and you don't know the status of your insurance?
No, we aren't just starting. This is our third year, but as I said, we're really lean and mean. And so none of us who have ever been here for the last 3 years knew about insurance, nor did our predecessors.
Okay. So you'll definitely want an insurance policy. And this basically just protects you, your fiduciary responsibility. It protects you from, if anything happens to a kid at one of your events, that you're not personally liable for anything. Most of us use.
I just looked it up. It's RV Nuccio and Associates. So is it liability that we want and then directors and officers, both of those things?
You want to have, give me 1 second and I will.
And if it's required by Virginia PTA, why didn't we know that? Is that something that they check on or?
So yes, you've got to upload, and the upload part is new, but you do have to upload your insurance policy into Member Hub for compliance purposes.
Okay.
So I don't know where the upload part changed, but I'm pretty sure that the requirement has always been there. So I'm just going to take a look in the financial review. It tells you the different types of insurance you need. So I just want to get that for you.
Yeah, thanks.
Sure. So you need. All right.
Hey,
So-
George, I can answer your question because Jamie sort of like obliquely referred to it, but I'm a Fairfax County parent, and I am a treasurer at a middle school here at Glasgow. And I have a middle schooler and a high schooler, but I'm also the Virginia PTA treasurer. And so I told Jamie I would sit in, and she did not say when she was talking about my presentations that the reason why they were so good is that she was my moderator. But anyway, so what happens when you can upload into Member Hub, and like Jamie said, that is new. So if you're not comfortable with that, you can also email your policy, or we used to have everybody snail mail everything, and we don't need the whole thing. We just need the beginning part. Most units just have the basic 3 coverages that Jamie can read to you because I don't have it in front of me, but we will check, or I shouldn't say we, Virginia PTA does have employees. I'm not one of them. I'm a volunteer like you, but we have an office in Richmond, and we have employees that one of whom her role is compliance. And all she does for her job is to check and make sure that our units are in compliance. So if you guys, have you ever gotten a good standing letter from Virginia PTA before?
She's looking right now.
It might say 501c3 letter.
And she says she thinks so, but she's looking.
Yeah, so you get one of those every year. But one of the things that we're checking now that I'm not sure they were necessarily checking before is for units. We've always required units to have insurance because that's a national PTA thing. But it's one of those things where it's for your own good that we require it. It doesn't do us anything.
Right,
but
I don't dispute that.
Yeah, no, and
Yes.
the premium is less than $200. I think it's been a while since I'll have to pay our middle school one here in a couple of months, but I think it's like $179. I don't know, Jamie, do you remember?
You don't need like a crazy, if the roof blows off the school kind of, insurance policy. I think that, I think most of them are between $175 and $350, depending on what kind of coverage you're getting. Yeah.
Yeah, and just looking at their website quickly, it looked like directors and officers, insurance and liability made the most
Yeah,
sense.
so it's insurance in, to protect the PTA against loss of property by reason of fire, theft, or casualty. Liability policies to protect PTA officers and members, school children, or other third parties where PTA projects or activities may result in an accident. And then the other is that handling PTA funds are covered by a fidelity bond. So those are the three parts of coverage that you need. So I will post those into the chat because I know I read those really fast.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
of
Sorry to
course.
take so much time with that.
No. You are totally fine.
Hi,
Thank you.
my name is Julia, and I actually am a parent of a student at South Lakes. I am going to be president of the PTSA this year. I'm actually speaking up because of a technical problem. I can't seem to access the chat, so I don't have access to any of this information that you're posting. I do have concerns that I'm the only one from my school, executive membership that is here in this meeting right now. So I'm starting to feel a little panicked, to be quite honest. But you know, I'm happy to hear that there is information on the PTSA website. Is there also a link that you can provide to us by email of like the YouTube training links?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So Julia, if you want to, well, I guess you can't pop it into the chat. I know that if you kind of join from your browser, you don't have all the bells and whistles.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But I will tell you my email, and if you just shoot me an email.
That would be great. Yeah.
It's treasurer at FCCPTA.org.
And for the YouTube videos, Julia, you can just, if you go into YouTube and just search for Virginia PTA, we have a channel. It's
Okay.
we're you know, it's kind of behind the times, as my 15-year-old says. You know, we're just starting to try to put content on there, but you can subscribe to our channel, and then anytime there's a new video, what they've been doing is there's training not just for treasurers. They're offering training about all kinds of things, bylaws and member hub, and there was a training for presidents. There's a training for vice presidents, committee chairs, all kinds of stuff. And it's going to continue through the fall. And obviously, if you sign up just like with this, then you have opportunity to ask questions while it's happening. But all of them, you don't have to sign up if you can't go, because they're all going to be uploaded to YouTube, and all of the slides are on our website, vapta.org, and we're trying to make that even more user-friendly. So if you think of something like a question that you have and you can't find it on the FCCPTA site or on the Virginia PTA site, you can shoot me an email, or you can let Jamie know and she'll tell me. My email is treasurer@vapta.org, and you can find that on the website too. Just because we're really trying to build out our you know, what we're pushing out, so that we can be proactive instead of reactive. You know, Jamie and I both spend a lot of our volunteer hours answering questions, which we're happy to do. But, you know, if there's a way for you to find the information you need without having to attend a training or to email us, you know, we'd like to provide that. So if you have any suggestions for things that you think are missing, please let me know.
Okay. Anne-Marie, can you tell me your handle again? Treasurer at, and what's
vapta.org.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I think too, you know, it doesn't take us any time to answer questions. At least, like, I think on the county level, we get a smaller amount than the district level, than the, you know, state level. But, you know, there's always folks around who, you know, are here to be supportive. So, you know, no question is too small or too big. If we don't know the answer, we'll find it for you. You know, when I started and I started getting questions, I leaned on Anne-Marie a lot, because she actually was the treasurer before me. And so, we all got our knowledge from somewhere and someone. And so we're happy to help, because at the end of the day, right, this is really our entire service is actually to you as local PTA members and officers. So we really are here to serve and support you guys. So, reach out if ever you have any questions. Don't, feel like it's too little or it's too much or, anything like that. Anybody else have any other thoughts or questions that we can kind of answer while we're all here together?
I had one. I was wondering if you could talk about the balance of how many of the records we should keep digitally versus, it seems kind of silly to print out bank statements. So I keep them in we have a Google Drive, right, that all the board can see.
Sure.
What's,
So I think the hard copy is important when you're going to do your financial review. Certainly there are local PTAs that have decided they'll do paperless, moving forward, as long as folks have access to it. As long as those records are kept, whether they're electronic or not, in accordance with the PTA's records retention schedule, I think that's really the important part. So, it really is going to depend on how your local PTA chooses to keep their records. I keep everything electronically and in hard copy. So I don't think that there's a problem with having it electronic, as long as it is visible to others and it's transparent. The other part of that is, if at any point in time you're in a general meeting and a parent says, I want to see the bank statements from last month, right? That's their right to do so, and that we owe that to them to kind of say, okay, well, here it is, you can see it. So as long as you're able to meet that, I think that electronic is okay.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I keep all the checking cash statements, the PayPal statements. I'll try to keep them all in one folder structure for the entire executive board. So.
And your treasurer reports and your reconciliations, all of those kinds of things, I guess we could, go ahead and go down the list, just every month the treasurer should be, getting those bank statements, taking a look at the bank statements, making sure that everything that went in was supposed to and everything that came out was supposed to. Don't forget that your account needs to be reconciled by a non-signator every month. So somebody else gets your bank statement. They also get all your deposit slips and they get all your withdrawals. And they can say, yep, everything matches. We're reconciled for the month. I use MoneyMinder. It makes it super simple. I just give somebody a visual account and they can go in and they can take a look at it. Anne Marie handed that down and it was like the best thing ever. It does pretty much all the work for you, which, this day and age is kind of nice. So you have to make sure you're doing that. You have to make sure that you're giving a treasurer's report at every meeting. You want to make sure that your books are transparent and that your general membership can see them if they want to. All of those kinds of things that are just your month-to-month type things. The other thing is to make sure that you're in compliance, which means your bylaws are up to date, that you have filed your 990 on time. And it's important when you file your 990, you'll get a pending report, which will say, hey, you filed it, good, we're going to review it. And then you have to go back in and print off and send to the Virginia PTA that one that says we've accepted it. So those are the two things. You've got to do your financial review. You have to make sure that you're paying both your county dues and your state dues every year, and that will put you in compliance. That will mean, okay, I'm in compliance, I'm good. You'll get that 501c3 letter. And please don't forget that all of these things have to be uploaded into Member Hub, and that these things also need to be sent over to Deborah Samuelson over at VA PTA, and her email is liaison@vapta.org. So you want to make sure they get all of those things. Then what eventually happens is around October, we get a compliance report at the county and we'll start reaching out and saying, hi, did you do this? Or do you need help doing that? And so that's kind of our role to make sure that we're reaching out. I reached out a lot last year and said, hey, I got a report that, your financial review was not submitted. And some folks were like, hey, I forgot to submit it. I'll go submit it now. And other folks said, I already submitted it. Here's the, submission date. And I went back to Virginia PTA and I said, hey, here's what I'm hearing from the groups. And so we kind of liaison like that on your behalf to make sure that, all of your stuff is in order and that all of our local chapters are kind of recognized under that state 501c3. And then obviously, once all of that stuff is in, you'll get that 501c3 letter and you can move forward under Virginia PTA. Any other thoughts? We're coming up to 8 o'clock. We've got another 10 minutes. So I want to make sure that we cover all of your burning questions.
Jamie, I'm curious, you touched on this a little bit. I know that we have dues for county PTA and state PTA. Can you speak to, beyond having you guys as a resource for questions and such, are there any, benefits, things we should know that we can utilize these organizations for as a result of having that membership and paying the dues?
Yes. So the biggest thing that both offer is training, right? Definitely PTA does the training. We do the roundtable. That's kind of our piece of the pie. You have to pay dues in order to have your kids do reflections, which is a contest of art, music, like all of those kinds of things. The spelling bee, we do the county spelling bee. And then as we have winners from that, we push them through to, I think this year we had someone go all the way to the semifinals. So we kind of coach them through that process. Obviously we are just we are here to be a resource and to advocate on your behalf. So we do a lot of that. A lot of our work on the advocacy side goes to, any kind of bills that are coming up through the legislature that are education based. We do a lot of that work. Virginia PTA played a huge role in Fairfax County Public Schools budget this year, making sure that it remained flat and that it had everything it needed to reopen. So that was a huge win. We help with position statements at the local level. So, if there's a particular situation going on in a particular local community, we could help craft missions or statements about that and help do those kinds of things. And then there are scholarships for students that happen. That doesn't really impact the elementary school kids as much, but high school students, we give away scholarships to them, for books or whatever they, want to use. We have a scholarship program for them. And then we also do mini grants directly to local PTAs. So if there are PTAs that say, hey, we want to do this program or project, there's a process for you guys to apply for grants from Fairfax County PTA to be able to do some of that work. And so those are some of the benefits of belonging in the county. Now the state, you've got to be able to be under their 501c3. And so, along with training, they make sure that you're in compliance. All of those kinds of things, all of those more administrative things, as well as the training, are provided by being a member of the Virginia PTA. And they actually hold the local PTA's charters. So I hope that helps. Any other thoughts, questions, comments? All right, so again, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I know it was a small group, but I feel like there were a lot of great questions that came. I am happy to answer any questions that may come up or that other folks, after you bring this information back, if they have additional questions, feel free to email. I'm always available. My email is treasurer@fccpta.org. I'm not going to put it in the chat since not everybody can see it. So, happy to answer any questions that you guys may have. And if anybody would like to have my couple of slides or just the resources, I'm happy to send that out as well. Just shoot me an email and we can take care of that. I know that we will be having some additional roundtables through the summer. I believe there will be one in August about, just your PTA and kind of beginning of the year type things that folks may be interested in. And the other thing that I would encourage everybody to do is make sure that your officer information is updated with the Virginia PTA. This way we have ways to contact all of your new officers. And so if that hasn't been done yet, please go ahead and upload your new officers to the extent that you have them. So, with that, I will stick around, a few more minutes if anybody has any oh by the ways. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us. And I look forward to seeing you all again very soon at other trainings or roundtables.
Thank you for hosting this session. It
Thank
was
you.
informative.
Great. I'm glad. Thank you.